that he's not a Gestapo officer. He was about 6'2", and I was only 5'8". So I looked to this guy, handsome face, young looking, in his early 30s or late 30s. It's hard to describe his age. He looked very mature. He was about 35 years old or 34 years old in this time. And he looks me, and I felt right away a closeness between him and me.
Born April 28, 1908, Schindler was born into a life of riches where his family was considered above others. When the war appeared, Schindler became a salesman instead of staying in the family business. Never missing a chance to make money, Schindler rushed into Poland with the SS and went straight forward into the black market, becoming friends with the local big-time Gestapos. His ways of softening them up with multiple things allowed him to acquire a factory which he ran with the cheapest labor, Jewish citizens. His actions just made him seem like any other uprising German industrialist, driven by the thought of profit, but along the line his thoughts changed. In December 1939, Poland was being torn apart by the savagery of Nazism and the Holocaust. Before the outbreak of the war, Poland had been a relative haven for European Jews, Krakow's Jewish population reaching over 50,000. The invasion of the Germans created destruction that began an era that was disgusting, merciless, and horrid. Jews were herded like animals. In the crowded ghettos, they were beaten, humiliated in public, and many were, of course, killed. It was during this time when Schindler took his first steps from the hate and darkness of Nazism. After acquiring his Amelia factory, the removal of Jews to death camps began. Schindler's accountant, who was a Jew, put him in touch with a few Jews with any remaining wealth. They were the ones who invested into his factory and then would be able to work and perhaps be spared. Soon Schindler was hiring more Jewish workers, stating their skills as essential, paying off Nazis so Jews were allowed to stay in Krakow. Schindler was making money, but in his factory everyone was fed, no one was hurt or beaten, and no one was killed. It became an oasis of humanity in a world of darkness. As the brutality of the Holocaust started to rise, Schindler's protection became increasingly active as in the summer of 1942, Schindler witnessed a German raid on the Jewish ghetto in Krakow.
But they were going from house to house with 2 dogs, and they were trying to trace all the Jews who were hiding, and I saw hiding behind a special wall what I was thinking will be good protection, but that later on I found out will be not a good protection against the dogs. I saw them pulling a woman and a child. They shot the woman and they killed the child by taking the child by the legs and hitting the wall. Then I decided to step out, and I knew that probably my last minutes of my life, but I didn't want to be killed over there in the hiding place. And I decided to figure out how I can protect myself. And I know a little bit mentality of the soldiers and the officer, that when somebody gets some order and fulfill the order, then they have to respect it. So I start to take the bundles what were laying all around on the street and put them in one place. And when they came to me close enough, about 4 or 5 feet, I turned it to them, and in German reported to them that I was appointed here by one of the officers to clean the road so that the thoroughfare should be open. There were no cars there, there were not horses, there was nothing there. They start to laugh, but they figure out the guy just got the order, so he's doing the order. So he told me in German, verschwind. This means get lost. I didn't run. I turned around, clicked with my heels, and slowly left, don't even turning my head behind, because I knew when I turn my head, maybe we'll get a bullet in the back of the head.
Later that summer, the Germans established a Plzeł slave labor camp near the ghetto. Jews as well as Polish prisoners were sent there to work in factories. In March 1943, the Germans emptied the ghetto, sending more than 2,000 inhabitants to Auschwitz. The remaining were sent to Plzeł. Learning of the Germans' plans for liquidation of the ghetto, Schindler told his employees to stay at his factory until the war was over. The violence of the liquidation and the worsening conditions at Plzeł led Schindler to take additional steps to protect his workers. He even went as far as asking a commandant at Plzeł that he wanted to transfer Amelia to a sub-camp, complete with barracks for his Jewish workers. The commandant agreed. A bribe, of course, was included.
Start liquidating all small camps. They start bringing in people from our camp, and they liquidate the Camp Amalia. And for the first time, I heard about people talking about Amalia, that there's an Oskar Schindler, in his camp, nobody gets beaten, nobody's hungry, and nobody's overworked.
The first transfer of Jews to the subcamp took place in 1943. By the summer of 1944, more than 1,000 Jews lived there, and Schindler treated them all relatively well and provided extra food rations that he managed to buy on the black market. As Soviet troops approached Krakow, Schindler was ordered to break up the Jewish subcamp at Amelia. The workers were to be sent back to Plzeł and then to other camps. Schindler asked permission to set up a new armaments factory in Brunelitz, located in German-occupied Czechoslovakia. He then arranged for nearly 1,100 Jews from Plzeł, some who had worked at Amelia, to be transferred to the new factory. On this list he claimed were indispensable workers. In the fall of 1944, the Jews were brought to the factory in Brunelitz. The men were transferred from Grossrosen and the women from Auschwitz.
We were only guessing. We didn't know where we're going because, first of all, there are no windows in the cattle cars. We stopped, I think, on the way. The German soldiers let us go out for a while, and we had some snow that we took from the ground and kind of instead of a drink. And finally we arrived in some very desolate station, and it said Brunelitz. So of course we were terribly excited that finally we arrived at our destination. But in the background we saw some very tall chimneys. And as we marched to Schindler's camp, which we assumed would be Schindler's camp, we marched by fives. And I was walking, among other friends, with a girl who came originally from Germany, but she was deported from Germany to Poland, and in Poland to camp in Płaszów, and with us to Birkenau and to Schindler's camp. Her name was Margot. And she said to me, "Oh my God, now we're going to die. Do you see these chimneys?" And I said, I always get upset. And I said to her, "Margot, we cannot die, because if we would be destined to die, we would die in Birkenau."
The Jews remained in Brunelitz until the area was liberated by the Soviet army in May 1945. After the war, Oskar Schindler escaped to the west. He died in October 1974 at the age of 66 and is buried in the Catholic cemetery in Jerusalem. Though he was a man who once only wanted money, he saved thousands and labeled each that he protected his child.